My phone fell over then. What up, guys? It's your brother Joe here, and welcome to an F1 2019 season preview with some predictions thrown in. In this live stream, I am going to be talking about my predictions and thoughts for the new Formula One World Championship season. And what an exciting season we have got in store for us. There have been so many grid changes this season. I think it's something like only 2 teams have kept the same driver lineup this season. It's a lot of change at the front as well. I reckon we are going to get a bit of a mixed bag of a season. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think we're going to see a lot of surprises, a lot of good racing, and I don't know, maybe the odd shock result here and there. But for now, let's go through team by team and discuss, what potential they may have. Now, I always say this is a rule. Testing doesn't really show us everything, because if there's one thing that testing in Barcelona this season has taught us, it's that the price of sandbags is clearly too low in Barcelona. So anyway, let's move on. We're going to start by talking about Alfa Romeo Sauber. I'm a little bit disappointed that, do you remember the Valentine's Day livery that they sported when they first revealed the car? I'm disappointed they didn't keep that livery, because it was beautiful. And, I don't know, again, with Red Bull, I will come back to that as well, because it's something Red Bull have done, and I am not best pleased with that. So, let's get into the driver lineup then. We've got Kimi Räikkönen, who's moved from Ferrari. It's a surprise move from him, I'm not going to lie, but he's reunited with the team that he started F1 with, or should I say the team he started, because it's now known as Alfa Romeo. But it's weird to see him back with Sauber, but I think he's still got moments of greatness still to show us yet. As for Giovinazzi, I don't know too much about him. Like, I remember a couple of seasons ago, he had a couple of races, and I think it was the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, he spent most of it in the wall, so I don't know what potential he has. Maybe he's grown in the last couple of years. But I think with Alfa Romeo Sauber, it's interesting because in testing, they looked quick at the beginning, but then they just seemed to fall back a little bit. So I don't know if towards the end of testing, they were maybe sandbagging a wee bit. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see. But as for me, I think we will see Raikkonen on the podium one more time before he retires. When that will be, I can't tell you, but I think we will see Raikkonen on the podium just one more time, and I think it would be amazing to see. As for Giovinazzi, time will tell. I think maybe he did do one race before China, which was Melbourne, and I remember him doing relatively decently that weekend, so I guess it could go either way for Giovinazzi, and I think there's a lot he can learn from having a driver like Raikkonen in the team. So I think with having Raikkonen in the team, he can really learn from Raikkonen, feed from him, well, with as many words as Raikkonen will care to give him anyway. I can't tell you where I think Sauber will be, but they will be somewhere in the midfield. And I think the midfield this season is going to be closer than ever. Okay, let's move on. We are going to go, I think we'll just discuss Toro Rosso next. They've got Danny Kvyat and Albon racing for them. They seem to have a few problems in testing, but they overcame most of them. Albon seemed to crash very quickly on. So again, I'm not too sure what Albon's going to achieve this season. But it's good to see Kvyat back, and I think the time off will have done him really well. He's always kind of been there or thereabouts, but let's just hope there's less of the torpedo moves, as Vettel so calls them. I'm not sure where Toro Rosso are going to be. It's always a bit of a guessing game as to where Toro Rosso will fit into the pack. Definitely somewhere in the midfield, I reckon. I don't know. Their lineup, it's not what I would have expected. But obviously they're just going with the best of what they had at the time. Moving on now, I think we'll go on to Racing Point. Now, everybody looks shocked because Lance Stroll has moved to the team. Come on, let's just do this whole pretending we're shocked thing for 1 second here. Because honestly, when that was announced, it wasn't a shock. Everyone was just like, wow, we did not expect that. You know, I'm probably going to take a little bit of flack for this, but other than that one race in Baku, Stroll has really yet to impress me yet. And honestly, I feel like the only reason he has this drive at Racing Point is because his dad bought the team. Other than that, you know, I can't really make any other judgment other than so far he hasn't really impressed me. But then again, is that his fault? Or is that the fault of the Williams car really not being all that good? I know he did get a handful of points last season, so it remains to be seen. He is partnered by Sergio Perez this season, and I kind of feel for Checo because he is a great driver. Regardless of what anyone says, Perez is a great driver. You know, he's had so many great results. If we take Malaysia 2012, for instance, where he got second, and he's always had a handful of podiums. He's had a handful of podiums, and he's always been sort of there or thereabouts. And it's just a shame that the 1 year he got an offer from a top team, that was the beginning of McLaren's descent, and I feel like he was treated a little bit unfairly, as towards the end of the season, he was really starting to show potential. But, yeah, I think, again, you know, Stroll could learn a thing or two from Perez. But I really like Perez, and I really want to see him do well this year. But as for where Racing Point will be, I can't tell yet. They didn't look fantastic in testing, I'm not going to lie. So, again, you know, it's all speculation at this point. It's all guesswork. None of it we can tell until Lights Out hits next Sunday. So I think we'll move on. We'll go on to... Who should we go on to next? Williams. The toothpaste livery. I know a lot of people in the comments on all the F1 pages have said it looks like toothpaste. They had this issue where the car seemed to go missing for the first couple of days of testing. They didn't have the car at the circuit, whether it wasn't ready or whatever went on there. It's great to have Kubica back, but, you know, having Kubica back in a car that I don't think will do him justice could probably be one of the saddest things we've seen in the sport. It's great to have him back, and, you know, I'd like to see him, you know, up there or thereabouts. It's not looking great for Williams, you know. They've had a few issues, but they actually did get, towards the end of testing, quite a few laps done, particularly with George Russell as well. So that is going to be an interesting team battle to see, with Kubica. Obviously, with his experience, you know, you'd think he'll be ahead, but again, Russell looks very quick, so I guess that's going to be one of the closer team battles in the field. Okay, who have we not done yet? So, let's go on to McLaren. All new lineup with them. You know, you've got Carlos Sainz, who has shown brilliance, and obviously Lando Norris, the runner-up of the Formula 2 Championship last year, which was won by George Russell. I think there we have the potential for one of the closest matches in driver lineup there. It's an interesting lineup that McLaren have gone for. In terms of testing, their car looks quite good. It has shown quite a bit of potential, and they've had a lot less of the reliability issues that they've experienced in the few previous seasons, and it just all looks like a little step ahead for McLaren here. And with a team with a history as rich as McLaren's, that's what you want to see, you know. You want to see evidence that they're moving forwards. They deserve to move forwards, I think. With a driver lineup with Sainz and Norris, you know, you got a rookie and you got a driver who has shown moments of greatness. You know, Sainz has shown that greatness. You remember a couple of seasons ago in a wet Singapore, I think he finished 4th. And, you know, other than that, he has shown some great performances, and I think fully deserves a chance to go for a team that is on the move, you know, and they're definitely looking at moving forwards. There's a lot of positivity about McLaren this season, and I would like to see them well in the mix. They will probably be, in my opinion, close to the front of the midfield. Like, I think the midfield is just going to be, like, jam-packed, you know. Everyone, it's all going to be a little bit different every race, but I think McLaren will be the one team that always sort of stays there. And that's what we want to see. We want to see a big midfield battle as well as a big battle between the front teams. We want to see it being a little bit different every race. Well, that is 5 teams we have covered now. Let's move on to Red Bull. Again, I'm not impressed with what you did with the livery. You promised us a good livery, and then once again it was fake, and you go back to copying and pasting the old car. Why, Red Bull? Why do this to us? It kind of invalidates the whole point of a car launch, in my opinion. It doesn't make any sense to do that. But in any way, it is what it is. Let's move on. They've got Pierre Gasly joining for this season, who has said in interviews that he feels like he can give Verstappen a run for his money. Not so sure, mate. I feel Red Bull, because obviously Ricciardo left, I feel Red Bull have kind of gone, okay, we have to pick someone from Toro Rosso. And let's be honest, Brendan Hartley wasn't all that impressive last season, so let's just rope Gasly in. I don't know, he could go on to do some really great things, but I feel like Red Bull with Gasly just kind of went with the lesser of two evils. Obviously, Verstappen is in the team. And again, Red Bull surely are sandbagging. They have to be. No way are they 7th overall in the fastest cars, because if they are, that's a very worrying sign for them. I'll say this, though. With Verstappen in the team, I think he will probably end up outdriving the car again. Who knows where Red Bull are at this point? They could be completely sandbagging and then turn up to Melbourne like, surprise, motherfucker, we have the fastest car. That would be a laugh. But no, they've had a few problems, but if any team can overcome them, it's Red Bull. We've seen them do it time and time again. Their driver lineup, I'd say, is pretty strong, but I feel like, it's definitely a number 1, number 2 hierarchy here, because, well, that's just the way of the team. Most front teams, Mercedes very much seemed to have that last year, and Red Bull seem to be looking at that this year. Obviously, the biggest news is that Ricciardo has left Red Bull, probably because they do tend to favour one driver over the other. We have seen that in history before. We all remember Mark Webber's famous line, not bad for a number 2 driver. And Webber was always one of the more outspoken drivers in the field. And I do miss Mark Webber being in F1. I feel like, he was definitely robbed of a title because of the way Red Bull were in the day. But Ricciardo's obviously moved away, and Red Bull, they've had to put someone in, so they've put Gasly in, and Red Bull have often been criticised at the way, they treat their drivers. But I think Red Bull are a team that are purely business-based. They just go for whatever's best for the team and who can get the results. And they back whoever gets the results. It's just a business thing, really. Right, well, let's move on. We are now on to Haas with Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen. Grosjean has become a bit of a meme of late, let's be honest. What was he doing in Spain when he decided, I'm spinning, I'm going to recover straight onto the track? And then, of course, there was Baku last season where he walled it, and then had the audacity to turn around and say, yeah, I think Ericsson hit us. No, Roman. Ericsson did not hit you. He was miles behind you. You could park about 20 buses in the space there was between you and Ericsson. He didn't hit you. But anyway, before I go into a rant, Haas seemed to encounter a lot of reliability issues in testing. But, again, it's always better it happen in testing than racing. And that's kind of what testing's for. It's up there to iron out the bugs, as it were. And I feel like that's what Haas have done. They always seem to struggle, I think, every season. You always see them start the season right at the front, and then they always seem to move backwards throughout the season. Take Melbourne, for instance. They were both in the top 6 at one point, and then they retired, and then as the season went on, they were just gradually going a little bit backwards. They had some great races as well, but it's strange to see how they develop in comparison to other teams. I feel like this season might be Grosjean's last chance because he has caused a lot of silly incidents now, and this has got to be, I think, last chance saloon for him. Magnussen, I genuinely like as a driver, but as a person as well. Magnussen, he's just got that don't give a fudge attitude, and I love him for it. I remember Hulkenberg approached him after a race, and Hulkenberg was quite hostile towards him. He just turned around and said, "Yeah, suck my balls, honey." One of the greatest things I've ever seen in F1, and that's one of the reasons I genuinely like Magnussen. He's always one of the most interesting drivers to watch, like with Max Verstappen, actually. I'm going to be honest, though. Verstappen, just sidetracking for a moment here, Verstappen has seriously impressed me in the last couple of seasons. At the beginning of last season, he had a lot of trouble. He was causing a lot of incidents, but then he bucked up his ideas, and in the last half of the last season, he really impressed me. He was consistently on the podium. I don't think he was off the podium in the last few races. I don't know. I can't remember everything about it, but he was always seemed to be on the podium, there or thereabouts, and he did an absolutely stunning job. Mexico, dominance performance springs to mind. Brazil, where he overtook everyone brilliantly and nearly took the win, only to be robbed because Ocon did what he did. And again, that's one of those it is what it is things, but we'll move on from that. I think this year, Verstappen's really going to go all out to impress. It all depends if the Red Bull lets him. But yeah, back to Haas. I feel like it's Grosjean's last chance, and I don't know if he is going to deliver on it. I think Magnussen has the better chance of delivering, and I really enjoy watching Magnussen, so there's that one. Right, we got 3 teams left, so let's move on to the teams that were the 3 fastest in testing, and we're going to start with Renault. Renault have what, in my opinion, is the strongest driver lineup on the team. On the circus, as it were. On the grid. There we go. Got it right third time. Yeah, Renault have what I think is the strongest current lineup because they've got 2 very experienced drivers, both of which have shown that they are both very, very good. I really like Hulkenberg. I think he's perhaps one of the most underrated drivers on the grid. And I've always wanted to see Hulkenberg have a chance that he deserves. He's never quite had it, though. But, again, that's one of those time will tell things. And he's now got a teammate that is really going to sort of be, right, I've got to do well here. So Hulkenberg, I think, has now got a teammate that is worthy of him in Daniel Ricciardo, who's moved from Red Bull. They looked quite quick in that last test. And I think at the beginning, again, they're not showing their true pace. Renault, I think, it's going to be interesting to see where they fit in the mix because I don't know if they're quick enough to be at the front, but they don't seem like, they're right in the middle of the mix of the midfield. So I'm hoping it doesn't turn out to be a complete flop for Ricciardo's sake because I genuinely like Daniel Ricciardo. And I've always said that I feel like he deserves a chance to go for the championship, but he's never quite had the car to be able to do it. So it's going to be interesting to watch those two wherever they end up on the grid because it's going to be an interesting battle because Ricciardo, in order to keep his integrity, will have to beat Hulkenberg. And Hulkenberg's got nothing to lose if he doesn't win against Ricciardo. But if he does, that might just prove Hulkenberg's worth. So it's a season where both drivers in that team are really going to be going all out to prove their worth in the sport. And I think it's going to be the closest match on the grid. They're both very good drivers who have shown world-class potential. I can't wait to see them two. They are one of the main reasons I'm excited. It is to watch the two Renaults do battle. Well, now we're on to the top 2. So let's start with Mercedes. You've got Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, who both remain at the team. And again, the only other team that have kept the same lineup for this season. Bottas has really got to prove himself this year now because he ended up falling into the number 2 trap last year because of how far behind he fell by the mid-season. And again, he just didn't have that consistency. You know, some of that was down to luck, but the other part was just down to him, really. And Bottas just seems to lack the consistency, and I feel like if he doesn't really step it up this season, Mercedes might look at other options. I know Esteban Ocon is with them as a reserve this year, and they're looking quite closely at him. But I feel like Bottas has really got to step it up. As for Hamilton, you know, he's 5 times world champion. He's back again. He's looking to make it a 6th this season. And he anticipates that they're going to have a hill to climb to get to Ferrari. Again, you know, I think Mercedes are probably the biggest sandbaggers on the grid when it comes to testing. It wouldn't surprise me if we turn up in Melbourne and the car is something like half a second quicker than everybody. So I think Mercedes haven't really shown their true pace yet. And my big concern is that Ferrari have, and we end up with another Merc domination season. Only time will tell on that one, though. But I think it's going to be... I think, personally, it's going to be very close. I think Hamilton has got to be, so far, the favourite to do it again until we see evidence suggesting otherwise in Melbourne. And I will be doing a top 5 predictions. I don't care how bold it is. For Melbourne. Anything goes at this point. But yeah, I feel like Hamilton is still the favourite for the championship. I still think Mercedes are the team to beat overall. So now we come on to the final team, and it's Ferrari. Now, obviously, I am the biggest Ferrari fan going, so I want to see them take the championship this year. It's a new lineup again because, well, it's not an entirely new lineup, but we got Sebastian Vettel, we got new driver Charles Leclerc joining from Sauber. Leclerc was extremely impressive last season. He got 6th in Baku, which was his best result. And then he just followed it up with consistently being in or around the points. You know, he was brilliant. And especially towards the last half of the season, you'd look down the field and you see P7, you'd be like, oh, it's Leclerc again. You know, you'd look at 7th and Leclerc would just be there, just like, yo, I'm chilling, 7th. So, again, I'm excited to see what can come from Leclerc. I know he made a few rookie mistakes last year, but he was a rookie. You know, he's now got a chance at a top team, and I honestly think he's going to be a very close match for Sebastian Vettel. And I think in that sense, it might push Vettel forwards. Now, he made a lot of mistakes last season, which I feel cost him the championship, because there were parts of the season where Ferrari seemed to have the better car. And I think if you add up all the points lost, he probably would have either done it or been very close to being champion. You know, there was a lot of mistakes made by him. And hopefully, for his sake, we'll see a lot less of that this season. So, it's going to be close, but I feel like Leclerc is going to win a race this year. And I think he's going to give Vettel a run for his money. So, let's go straight down to Melbourne predictions before I cut the stream. Actually, no, because I'm going to do... Let's go to Melbourne predictions, and let's go to sort of season predictions after that before I cut the stream. Melbourne, I think... the top 5 finishers will be Vettel, Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, and maybe Hulkenberg in 5th. You know what? Let's go for that as a predicted top 5. Let's go for that as a prediction. It's a bit bold, but bold wins. As for my predictions for the season, you know, I think there's going to be 2 discernible battles. You're going to have the front teams, who I think are going to be very, very close. And I think you're going to have the midfield, which is going to be extremely close. You know, it's going to move around and change with every race. I'd like to think that McLaren will probably front the midfield battle. Obviously, Renault, I think, are going to be in a bit of a league of their own if they are behind the top 3 teams, but still quicker than the midfield. I think it's going to be a case of McLaren closely battling Toro Rosso and maybe even Haas in that mix. I think we're just going to see a very close season all round, and I'm excited for it. Well, that's my preview for the season anyway. Let me know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to be champion? I think it's going to be a very close season. But here's a little fun fact about the Australian Grand Prix. Ever since 2010, only 3 times has it been won by the driver that's gone on to be world champion. So there's some food for thought right there. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. Please sub for more. And until the next video, I've been Joe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. I forgot how you end the live stream now.